Man is to error, and the magnitude of that error, at times, results in unfathomable horrors. No man is invulnerable, and when the fragile nature of man overcomes those in positions of power, when a leader's passions, their insecurities, their goals, their flaws, overwhelm them and expose this true nature of man, a villain might just be birthed. Now, none of this was actually in mind when I was first introduced to Count Dracula when I was a wee little child. No. Back then, when I was first introduced to Count Dracula, my first instinct was shit my pants. However, over the years, I have found a new appreciation for Bram Stoker's creation of Dracula. This, not going to lie, coming mostly from the pop culture depictions of the Prince of Wallachia, mostly through Helsing Ultimate and his depiction in Castlevania. And whilst I'm at it, might as well give some props to the fun depiction of Count Dracula by Nicolas Cage in the recently released Renfield. And aside from these Count Dracula depictions in pop culture, another huge source of my fascination with the Prince of Darkness comes from my engagement with reading of the history of what is thought to be his original inspiration, which of course is Vlad Tepes, or Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad the Third, or Vlad Dracula, or pretty much any other moniker that Vlad the Voivode of Wallachia went by. And whilst nothing about this inspiration for Count Dracula is set in stone, I think it's a pretty educated guess. But then again, this is just but a long-winded tangent to get to what I actually want to discuss, which is about an African leader who has some historical similarities, some of the stories that we associate with the rule of Count Dracula in Tagovesta. And this, of course, is in none other than
His Excellency, El Hajj, Field Marshal Dr. Idi Amin Dada, holder of the British Victoria Cross, DSO, CMV, MC, appointed by God.
Now, just a couple of things off rip before we get into this discussion proper. First of all, this is African Entertainment Reviews. If this is your first time, welcome. And so, we will be looking at this not as a history lesson, but more through the lens of how pop culture and entertainment media have depicted General Idi Amin. So do remember that these iterations are depictions of Idi Amin from the movies, thus some things are hammed up exponentially to fulfill their entertainment purposes. Do stick around for the conclusion though, because I will be giving you one film that does a fantastic job in realizing the reality of Idi Amin's reign. Secondly and finally, whilst I will be terming Idi as a villain, I am not exactly here to pass judgment upon him. Mostly because I am not Ugandan and have no direct correlation to the reign of power under Idi Amin. And whilst I will categorically say that there are many villainous acts that he committed, I do not have any call that passes judgment upon him. In fact, and trust me, I am just as shocked as you're about to be by what I'm about to say. I kinda relate to General Idi Amin's overall goal. Wait, don't leave. Just hear me out, okay? I'm not a dictator, yet. What I am referring to are his general goals of Pan-Africanism, of which, if you can see the description laid out on screen, it does bear similarities to what the objectives of African Entertainment Reviews as a channel are. If any of this sounds like something you're into, feel free to subscribe, welcome to the community, or else. First up, we have 7 Days in Entebbe, or as I know it, the creator of the new site Bubango.
Class is open.
Just to catch you up real quick, this is a movie about freedom fighters hijacking a French aircraft to take hostage of the Israeli civilians aboard it, so as to further their Palestinian plights following the recognition of Israel as a state. A plane that was first landed in Libya but was immediately flown again to Entebbe, Uganda, where the hostage situation fully took ground. Now, based off that synopsis, it's easy to tell that the main antagonistic force of this film was not General Idi Amin. No. That honor actually goes to the performance art interpretive dancers.
Oh, brother, this stinks!
But seriously, this movie actually features the African leader as a secondary, maybe even tertiary villain. In my opinion, they actually employ him to good use, and if I'm being quite honest, he might actually be the best part of this movie, despite being in it for a very short time.
As your savior!
We are first introduced to the general via a shot that tracks him and his family walking out to the terminal to meet the hostages. For the role of General Amin, this film perfectly casts the nearly 2-meter tall Nonso Anozie, with his Goliath stature fitting that of the general to a T. Well, actually, even more than that, considering, fun fact, Nonso is actually taller than the actual general was. The man's hulking figure has him looming over every other character in this film, making him feel more threatening when he is sharing the frame with them, even as he brandishes a huge smile across his face.
She's confused. Please, help her get inside the bus.
This, however, doesn't detract from the character who has a bit of a swagger about him and exudes a certain charisma. He's actually very soft-spoken throughout most of this film, and he approaches each conversation with a face value of kindness, yet somehow there lingers a certain stern, threatening connotation to his actual words.
You are offending me, old friend. All I'm trying to do is make sure the hostages are safe.
The movie's characterization of the general leans to his ego, showing that he is a proud man who has a keen interest in maintaining his public image and the public perceptions thereof. And the film plays to this several times as he addresses the hostages, mostly doing it in public spaces and in front of camera crews, making sure to always use reassuring words, but also words that pump up his own ego.
Tell them that the president of Uganda guaranteed your safety.
Another great scene that highlights this is during the negotiations with the Israeli government, where the Israelis try to appeal to his own ego by floating a notion that any aid that he can give to the nation and their citizens will boost his approval ratings on the global stage and turn face on his public image to the outside world, some of whom were very disapproving of his methods of leadership.
Don't miss this opportunity to show the people who say bad things about you what a great man you are. Actually, I think this will get you the Nobel Prize for Peace.
And this ego trip does have some payoff, as Amin actually convinces the Palestinians and the freedom fighters to release the French native hostages, an act which he fully capitalizes on by showing up with the media to flaunt his apparent heroism. The film also paints General Amin as a Machiavellian leader, using the Palestine-Israel conflict to further his own secret agenda, namely the popularization of his nation and himself with the Soviets and the Arabic nations for militaristic might and capitalistic gain.
I think that's Amin, not the Palestinians. He wants to be there when the prisoners are released. He wants to show the Soviets and the Arabs that he is with them now.
And in this way, the general isn't just an antagonist for the hostages, but seemingly also for the freedom fighters. This can be seen in one scene that I absolutely love, where after the release of the French natives, he joins the remaining Israeli hostages and delivers a threat to them that seems to actually catch even the terrorists off guard.
They will kill 2 children every 24 hours.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
You can see that the ones running the operation seem to have no idea about what he is talking about, and his horrific promise actually shocks them even more. One final characterization choice for him in this movie is in his superstitious nature, which has actually been documented before. This is explored right after the conclusion of the negotiations with the Israeli government, where he speaks of the spirits warning his mother, and by extension him, about involving himself with the Israelis.
The spirits warned my mother I should never offend the Israelis. We should listen to my mother.
To your mother?
Showing that he does indeed have a belief of these spirits and their sage advice. Before closing off this segment, I would like to point out one neat use of actual General Amin footage. This can be seen in the background of the Israelis' strategy meeting for the rescue op. It's not really an Easter egg or anything, but it was fun to pick up as the militants plot out their raid. All in all, this portrayal of the general, despite its short-lived nature on screen, is actually a very fantastic one, and I enjoyed his character a lot. In fact, as I said in the beginning, I think that this is actually the best part of this movie.
As your savior!
Next up, we have what is arguably General Amin's most well-known big screen depiction yet, and that is in The Last King of Scotland. Here we are yet again introduced to the general via a tracking shot on the back. Wait, is this like how General Amin appeared to everybody just walking away from them?
Mr. President. I got you!
Anyway, tracking shot from the back as he walks up the stage and approaches the mic to address his people during his initial coronation. And I really do have to say, the first look we have of General Amin's face is glorious. This is peak poster material, I tell you. Anywho, for this outing, Forrest Whitaker was cast in the role of the general, with his 6'2" physique putting him in perfect range of the gigantic general.
Because me, myself, I am a man in perfect physical condition.
More than just the physique, the mannerisms that Whitaker employs for this role are just class, especially on his line delivery. The mesh of Swahili and the sort of broken English patterns reflect a very similar speech pattern to that of the great general. Whilst Nonso did a fantastic job in his portrayal of the general, Forrest's take of the role absolutely nails his oratory traits and completely sells the idea of the charisma for the general. And just a bit of a silly observation here, but I just love how the mic used here has a worn-out filter, because for some reason it just sold me on the feeling of that particular time period. Anyway, as previously discussed in the other film, General Amin actually possessed a very charismatic aura, and in this film that is put on full display with his first appearance. This first public speech to the people is so captivating that it not only gets Nicholas to want him to succeed, but you also watching in the audience find yourself kind of rooting for this man. And this same charisma and charm is something the general wields throughout this film quite well, using it to lure, dispel, and sometimes even disarm various people where he sees it fit. Which brings us to this fantastic scene, where we get a rare exploration of the vulnerable side of Idi Amin Dada, something I doubt we have seen in any other media depiction of the general. This scene right here does for Amin's image what the scenes about Adolf Hitler being an aspiring artist did for his. For a scene that lasts less than 5 minutes, it has to be the most humanizing depiction of Idi Amin Dada in pretty much all of entertainment media. Well, that, and for me, the part where he actually roasts Jonah, that's as human as you get. All this charisma though doesn't stop the film from showcasing the absolute terror of an enraged Amin. Forrest does a fine job of wearing pure rage on his face without needing to utter a single word. He has this absolutely menacing glance that gives the viewers a good idea of just what to expect from this character if he so chooses to turn heel. And this always keeps the audience tense throughout the film, with a scene right around the halfway mark after the survival of an attempted assassination being the first time we get to see the cracks. And a paranoid Amin is a terrifying Amin. The assassination gone awry actually assists the film in further characterization of Amin by exploring one of his well-documented insecurities: the fear of former Ugandan President Milton Obote's loyalists taking him out.
That drunk, silly man! You want to kill me for that drunk, silly man? Huh?
And the scenes in which we get to explore more of this insecurity are personally equally as captivating as the scenes that showcase the general's charm. And that sentiment cannot be backed more than during this tense one-on-one between Idi Amin and Nicholas, a scene that epitomizes the general's domineering presence.
You have stepped deep into the heart of my country. Uganda. Uganda embraces you.
And just like the film before, this one also characterizes Amin via his documented superstitious beliefs. This time, however, instead of spirits, he actually has a very deep belief in his dreams and visions. One such being that he has already dreamt of the way he will die and is steadfast that there is no other way for him to possibly end. Sort of like a final destination premonition.
Also, I know precisely when I will die. It came to me in a dream.
Okay, so I put this in the middle because I thought that if I did that, I could save on time and not speak too much about this particular depiction of the Ugandan leader. However, I could literally talk all day about Forrest's take of Idi Amin in this film. Anyone could. It's precisely why it won Forrest Whitaker the Best Actor in a Leading Role Oscar award. This was an absolutely impeccable presentation of the general, and maybe someday we will revisit this film and delve deeper into the fantastic performances we enjoyed from it. And finally, we have a 1981 film titled Amin, The Rise and Fall. Now, this film is one that fully embraces the villainy of General Idi to an extent that it almost feels like a propaganda piece. The movie actually starts with this message, which holds true. However, they do leave out the extent to which their dramatization goes because it is very exaggerated. And I love it. If you have already witnessed my twisted sense of humor, and if you like it, be sure to subscribe, then you will find it no surprise that I also consider this film to be a parody of sorts.
For I am the world's strongest general. Ask my soldiers. Ask those who have had the honor of boxing me. Ask my wives. Why even ask my girlfriend?
Even during my very first watch through as a kid, not in the 80s, I didn't exist at the time. But when I did come into existence, as a young bloke, this movie was still hilarious in some parts. The role of General Amin in this film is played by Kenyan actor Joseph Olita, and it might be a little bit of patriotic bias, but I have to say that this is quite possibly the most magnificent depiction of General Amin on screen. Olita's physique alone would have quite easily qualified him to serve as a great body double for General Amin during his reign. However, even Olita's entire persona in this role fully replicates Amin's presence, albeit with a little bit more comical tone to it all.
Let me tell you, I'm the world's greatest lover.
In the previous segment, I highly commended Forrest's performance in matching the general's speech mannerisms. However, this might as well be a clone. That said, this film actually has a very gruesome depiction of the general's rule. You see, unlike the other films we have discussed up to this point, this film actually starts us off in the post-paranoia phase of Amin's reign. The film's key characterization of Idi Amin is within his insecurities of the former president Milton Obote and his loyalists. Therefore, we are treated to the extreme measures that he took to eliminate any person he found or even deemed suspicious.
Shut up! I cannot be fooled. You are a Obote man.
No, sir. We are all loyal to you, Your Excellency.
Ali?
Yes, sir.
Give him and all of them VIP treatment.
And as earlier pointed out, the exaggerated nature of this dramatization actually makes Amin's depiction here to be quite more terrifying than the rest. It almost seems like he's unhinged because he's always doing the wrong thing and then just laughing right after it, which just makes it very creepy. The laugh though is a rib cracker.
In Africa, a few heads must roll. But why? You will not understand that. This is a Kakwa custom.
And aside from his insecurities, the other characteristic that is a key component in this film is of course his supposed superstitious beliefs. And like every other thing in this film, it is highly exaggerated in its dramatization, having him eat serpents to gain certain special buffs.
Eat Malemungu. Snake will make you strong. I'd rather have eaten the chicken.
Or even indulging in a fair bit of cannibalism. In the film's opener, a narrator fills you in on the history before the dawn of the events that you're about to watch, in which he says this about the general.
That a son was born to a Kakwa father and a mother whom many considered a sorceress.
Thereby from the onset letting you know that this man is one who has very deeply rooted superstitious beliefs. And just like the other movie, this is another Idi Amin depiction that I could talk about for hours. However, this video has already gotten too long. But one thing I found funny enough to include was that as a promotional gimmick in theaters showing this movie back in the day, there were cardboard cutouts of Idi Amin as well as beanbags handed out to people who are going to watch this. They were so sure that the audience was going to hate Amin in this film, hence the exaggerated dramatizations. So they had these props in place so that audience members could vent out their rage after leaving the cinema. Newspaper ads for this movie actually promoted this gimmick with the slogan, "Vent your spleen, Bin Amin," which kinda sounds like something Dracula would say, "Vent your spleen, Bin Amin." This movie is pretty much the reason why I had that whole Dracula spiel in the beginning of this video. So if you've watched this video this far, I'm hoping that you got some kind of payoff from that. Olita actually reprises his role as Idi Amin in another film called Mississippi Masala. However, that is more of a romance film and the role of Idi Amin is more in the background, so I didn't want to create an entire segment for it. Though I do bring this up because this is probably the only film where you will ever see Denzel Washington making love to Rumba.
Bana fami moko fami etondi lokumo bato mitema mabe basangaka te bakangeli biso bilongi.
Now, none of these films are actually historically accurate, so I wouldn't recommend that you get your historical knowledge from watching any of these films. These are all entertainment pieces for you to enjoy in your leisure with just touches of inspiration from actual real-life events. As promised earlier, I was to give a recommendation of a film that I felt did do justice in a documentary style, and that is General Amin, a self-portrait, or in its original title, General Idi Amin Dada Autoportrait. And as I said earlier, this has more of a documentary take to it that actually features actual footage from Idi Amin Dada as well as other popular leaders, thus creating a more cohesive picture of the reign of Idi Amin in Uganda during the years of 1971 through to 1979. And I don't really think that that's the last we have seen of General Idi Amin Dada, in entertainment media at least. Unless his superstitious beliefs were actually true and he lives amongst us as a spirit.
As your savior!
But no, I still expect to see more of him in pop culture and entertainment media. A question which most people would ask is there really a need to immortalize such people whom we don't look too fondly towards? And to that question, just like other questions about our muddied histories, I believe that it is important to preserve our history so that we can identify signs of repetitive and possibly detrimental patterns of things that are happening currently. With the documentation of the history of Idi Amin Dada in books, documentaries, and even long-form entertainment like film, there is an awareness being spread to aid viewers in staying alert of the same behavioral and public tendencies of all people, be they public figures or even ones who are close to our inner circles. It is probably the same criteria that led to the boom in serial killer docuseries such as the redundantly titled Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. So yeah, I am pretty much looking forward to seeing more of Idi Amin in entertainment media, and hopefully we can even have more creative stories from our very own African writers. Hell, even lean more into that superstitious characteristic of Idi Amin and create that Dracula connection that I started off this video with. But do tell me what you think down below in the comments. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this particular video. It's been your soon-to-be favorite Uncle Omari, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Yeah, you too, Amin.
Your savior!